welcome to today's CxObytes. Look, I'm really excited about today's. We're talking to Angela Lim, or Dr. Angela Lim. Just before we get into that, thanks again for coming along. We just let a few more of you in. This is the fourth one we've done of these now, and they are on our website, and they're also on our YouTube channel. So without further ado, I'm going to unmute Angela and ask you to start your video, and we're going to start having a chat with Angela. Hey, welcome, Angela.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So we'll be starting these events each week by just asking people, now that we're in lockdown and people are having to work from home or remotely, what sort of setup have you done? Because I know you've got an office. What sort of setup have you done to be able to cope with the last 4 weeks?
Yeah, I just have my desk set up and my dining table, and so it's a nice and open space. So it's been really, it's been relatively productive being out this way.
Relatively productive. I've been on a few Zoom calls with people who've been working at their lounge table and watching their flatmates in the back actually cooking dinner or something. So it's always been a little bit interesting to see what's been going on. Angela, we've met and you've talked to us a few times about what you've been doing. We like to start with a little bit of background. So can we, because you've got a really interesting background, let's start with your original profession as a doctor. So can you tell us a little bit about why you became a doctor, how you got into that, and then why you went into pediatrics, because that's your specialty, right? So do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I kind of actually didn't know what I wanted to do after I graduated from high school. So I, being really Asian, picked the hardest course I could find, just to kind of see how I would benchmark against the rest of the country, and kind of fell into medicine from that perspective. And because it was really hard, I think, going through medical school, part of trying to understand what I was good at was how I kind of dabbled in other stuff periphery to the medical profession, and that kind of lead me to where I am today. But then, once I got into my clinical years, I really enjoyed it, and I love working with kids. There's something really joyful about working with them, and so that's how I kind of went into pediatrics. But I kept up with all the stuff that I did on the side around looking at health IT, and that's kind of got me to a point where I felt like I was at the stage of my career where I really wanted to focus on that full-time instead of practicing medicine full-time.
That's a really interesting thought. Can you just tell us a little bit, remind us how long it takes, first of all, to become a doctor, and then to what your specialty, how you got into your specialty?
Yeah, so I did my first degree, which is a Bachelor of Science, specializing in neuroscience, and I was really interested in the brain and psychology. So that was my first degree. That took me 3 years. Then I did my second degree, which was my medical degree. That took me 5 years, so 8 years in total at the University of Auckland. A great university. I learned a lot. And then I graduated and did basically 3 years of medical training in pediatrics. So 11 years in total before I actually took a step back and said, I'm going to press pause on that and try entrepreneurship instead.
Yeah, so maybe let's talk about that a little bit, because you've done all that work, and most people would have, said, well, I've done all this study and I've done all this, I've got to now make use of it. But, accountants talk about sunk costs, and, you can't look at what you've spent before you do what you do next. Is that the way you see it, or do you see it, did you make that decision? What led you to make that decision?
Yeah, I think that I'm quite I don't like to give up. So when I got into medical school, by basically second and third year, I kind of felt like it wasn't quite right for me. I enjoyed it, but I wasn't feeling like that was my place. And what I'm here to do in this world. But I was kind of halfway through medical school, and I was like, okay, I'll just finish medical school. So I did, and then I was like, okay, I just want to see what it's like, you know, not being a student. Maybe part of the discomfort was that maybe I was just in a student setting, and that when I start working, I would feel more at home. And so I did. I actually did enjoy it a lot more having graduated. But it still was a part of me that felt like, oh, something's still not right. And so I kind of, because I was finding medical school challenging, always knew that I was really interested in technology and how technology could improve the way that people access care. The thing I was driven by was by tackling health inequality. And I just felt that if we kept doing more of the same, we will never change the outcomes. And so I was very fascinated about how technology could completely transform the way we deliver care in the hospitals and in just the general setting.
Let's come back to technology in a minute again. You talked about health inequality, and one of the other roles that you run is you're the chair of the 2020 Trust. Can you tell us a little bit about why you got involved with them?
Yeah, I think if I think about what is the one value that runs everything in my life, is this idea around fairness, and inequality is the opposite of fairness in my in my books. And so when you look at how technology is really basically being the basis in which everything is being done, then the new version of inequality is through digital, or lack of being able to be digitally included in our society. And so I felt that if you really wanted to tackle inequality of the future, you have to tackle the from a digital what's the, you know, how are people digitally excluded in our society today. And it's very clear basically post because of the lockdown and how everybody's been having to move, you know, to study online and all that kind of stuff, or work from home. It really kind of shows you who is able to do that and who is not. And that will breed the next generation, and it will be intergenerational.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'd just like to remind people that as we go, you know, put your questions into the Q&A section so that we can ask Angela this afternoon. So this is about leadership and your leadership journey. So now that you've taken a step away from practicing as a doctor, tell us a little bit about what ClearHead is, why you got into it, and what your role there is.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so ClearHead is a digital health company. The intention is basically to directly address the barriers to accessing care. And I'll give you a very simple example. So when the whole pandemic happened, we were all asked, for example, if you're unwell, to call the helplines. And helpline basically saw 10 times the usual call volumes that they got. And what that meant was people couldn't even get through. People were waiting on the phone lines for more than an hour. And really what they wanted to do was check around, like, what is it that we, you know, do I have those symptoms? Do I need to be tested? And so what we did is our chatbot was able to go through the criteria with you and then tell you what to do, instead of if you're not able to get through to the helpline. And so really the intention is like, how do you use technology in one place that helps people understand what they need to do when they're trying to access healthcare? And we do that by using an artificial intelligence chatbot, and then putting all our resources in one place to support, for example, your mental health. So if you needed meditation guides, if you needed to track your mood, everything is in one place, and you as a consumer will feel very empowered to kind of take the steps to self-manage your health.
Okay, and so what's your role there? And can you talk about the skills and that you're bringing to that role, particularly around leadership, to drive it forward?
Yeah, so I'm the co-founder of this company alongside my very talented CTO, Michael Connolly, and my role as the CEO of the company. And what I have to do is everything that's not about coding the software. And so that means, you know, managing HR, setting the vision, interacting with stakeholders, ensuring that people, you know, buy into what we're trying to do. So it's an early stage startup, you're doing everything basically. But the main thing really is just steering the ship, you know, being very clear about where you want to go. How do you make sure that you communicate that to your team and your team's able to work together with you in achieving that?
Yeah, okay. So the previous people we've talked to have been in leadership for quite a long time. They've come through leadership roles, managers, etc., to get to where they are now. You've gone from one career and suddenly jumped over to the other, and you are the CEO and founder. What skills have you taken with you from your previous career that have been of value to this new one?
Yeah, I saw a chat by Sam. Just a quick answer to that is there's 7 of us in the team.
Okay, cool.
And if we continue the trajectory, well, we might be hiring a little bit more. So we're excited.
Cool.
And so, yeah, so I guess what I carry over is the ability to listen and be empathetic. Because when you work in health, oops, sorry, I don't know if you could hear that. When you, sorry.
Right.
So when you work in health, it's really important for you to understand the people that you're trying to serve. And so a lot of those skills around, you know, communicating with people and understanding their problem when I was a doctor and understanding the patient's problems, the same skill set that I bring around trying to understand the problem that we were trying to solve at a systems level. So we did a lot of user interviews with both mental health users, clinicians, government, just to kind of really understand and then build that picture. And I think that, you know, the fact is, like, I would never say the 11 years that I spent was wasted, because it was just a real deep dive into understanding the system in which you're trying to influence and change. And yeah, to all the attendees, that would be what I would suggest. If you're trying to think about a space that you want to work on, you cannot substitute just being there, immersing, understanding as an insider what the issue is, but then taking a step back and say, okay, if I'm a complete outsider, how would I then solve this problem, instead of trying to solve it the same way that it's always been solved?
Oh, we've got a really good question that's come through, but I want to ask you another one before that occurred to me, particularly around you are, you know, not to put it too blunt a point, you are a young female leader. So are some of our people that will be on the call as well. Both environments that I've seen, you know, that we're talking to you about, well, almost all three. But if you go back to being a doctor, lots of people around you would have been older than you. There would have been some old crusty blokes like me around there, and nurses and practitioners. Also in the 2020 Trust, you're the chair of that trust. Previous chairs have all been people like me, and I know them because I've dealt with them, you know, older gentlemen with beards and white. How have you found, or what skills and how have you managed to bring a voice into environments where you are not the same as everybody else, or you are, you're not the same?
Yeah, so I think that so I think there's a lot of unconscious bias. You can walk into the room being young, female, and Asian, and immediately someone picks you in their head around how they expect you to be. And I often find the best thing to do is just to surprise them by basically coming across in a way that dismiss their preset stereotypes. And I find that actually when you do that, they you become more memorable, right? Because you're not meeting their expectations. So I have often just led from a perspective that I speak around the experiences that I have, the insights that I've developed, and often they are would be considered older than my years. And that in itself allows me to feel that I deserve to be at the table. Of course, for some it will be harder to do that, and you can, you know, it's absolutely okay to kind of, in a compassionate way, you know, ask them to, talk to them about that if it's causing you discomfort at the meeting. So I think that the main thing that I've learned anyway is that you hold your own, and often it speaks for itself rather than trying to say, no, listen to me, I need to be listened. That's the way.
Well, let's go to the question that we've had from Param, which is what motivates you to do your, it's a multi-barreled question, so you've got in front of you, what motivates you to do your job? What are the challenges you face to continue to deliver the service? And we'll come back to the mental health bit in a little bit. We'll answer the second bit a bit later, but let's do the first bit. What motivates you and what are the challenges?
Oh, a lot of challenges. And I think the motivation is what keeps me going. So the main thing really is just thinking about, like, why are you doing this? Because as a startup, I can tell you the competition is stiff. There are many times I've asked myself, why am I continuing? And often I have to remind myself that this is why I'm doing it. I'm doing it to improve the lives of New Zealanders. That's what motivates me, not prestige, money, or anything like that. Because if you're motivated by that, there are so many other things you can do that will help you achieve that. That's much, much easier than running your own startup. So that's one thing. And then I guess the challenges I face is, like I said, the competition is stiff, I think, especially in sort of this aspect of technology. I think what you can see is that through COVID-19, there's a lot of companies are realizing how they need to go digital. And so for us, we were digital from the get-go. But that same advantage might not necessarily always stay. So, we can never rest on our laurels. We're constantly saying, like, how do we better integrate into the health sector? How do we get more people using us? How do we continue to innovate and push the boundaries? If we add this value, how do we add another value? How do we keep synergizing? So I think the main thing that's been challenging is just staying relevant and just making sure that you're one step ahead of your competitors.
Cool. You talked about before that as the CEO, you're doing everything other than the coding, or at least to start with, but you do have 7 employees now, and you did say you're doing HR. So can you talk a little bit about, now that you're running your own business, what sort of qualities are you looking for when you bring on leaders? Because you'll have a quite different view from some of the crusty old guys as well.
Yeah, actually our team, everyone's 30 and under. What we're really looking for is just people who show initiative and are able to kind of get shit done, basically, is what we're looking for. At a startup at this level, you're not really looking for hyper-specialized people. You're really looking for people who are flexible and able to work across where things need to be done, and then also willing to learn, because a lot of what we did it's not been done before, and that's the whole point of innovation. If it's been done before, it's not innovation. And so how do you also bring on people who when set with a problem, know how to learn from first principles? So that's really the 2 things we're looking for: people who will learn, who are flexible and are easy to get along with, basically.
Okay, and you're having to learn to lead these people. So we're in this COVID-19 pandemic. We're locked down. Hopefully, we're coming out next week into level 3, but we'll still be working home. What have you learnt about leadership in these last few weeks, in particular around leading people, leading the company through quite a disruptive time?
Yeah, I actually, for us, we've been lucky because I absolutely know that for some other sectors, like say tourism, this would be devastating. They've gone from multi-million dollars to maybe $0 revenue overnight, right? We're on the other hand really have luckily, I guess, or opportunistically been in the position where we're in health and we're in digital, which is really, I think, one of the growth sectors. And so from our perspective, our company and the team has really just rallied together to see how do we improve on the offerings, and how do we do that really quickly? How do we build partnerships? And just how do we keep, pushing the team forward? And so I would say that, like, the same leadership skills apply. They're just much more intense. They're just happening faster, and you're just having to kind of touch base more often and just keep pushing ahead.
Okay. Just following on from that, so you've chosen to work in the mental health field. That was where ClearHead came from.
Yes.
You've done the COVID thing since then. What led you into that space? Because I am going to spend the last couple of minutes just asking you for some personal, perhaps, thoughts around how people will cope. But let's go back to why you picked it in the first place.
Yeah, so I guess for me, the overall vision have always just been about improving access. And when we looked at, but if you kind of start off with saying like, we're going to try and change the whole health system, nobody's going to take you seriously. So we really took a step back and said, where in the health system had the biggest gap? And that was mental health very clearly. We have the highest youth suicide rates out of the 34 OECD countries. Something like the mental health report that has been published by the government has clearly outlined that the sector has not been able to meet the true demand. And we saw all of that before the government even, published the inquiry, before they even put money there. We just kind of went with where the people are saying that the most pain is, that people are just asking for simple stuff like, I would like to retain my dignity when asking for help. I should not be begging you for help. And so we thought that, it's the space that needed the most innovation in. It had the worst outcomes. And if we could make a difference there, it would make the biggest difference in New Zealanders' lives.
Yeah, really good. Let's finish up with a question of sort of around Param's question, but also just about, this time I think we're going to be in this way of working for quite a while now, and we're going to have to think about, well, how do we keep focused and look after ourselves? So mental health, have you got any words of advice as a young leader to people in similar situations like yourself about how to retain or how to look after their well-being and how to keep going over this period?
Yeah, so I think the number one thing that most people find challenging on their mental health is the uncertainty, right? Is there going to be an economic downturn where I will lose my job? How am I going to be able to go to work while still managing my family? So there's a lot of uncertainty that's associated with COVID. And because the pandemic is still unfolding in front of us, nobody has the answers to that. And so the first thing is being able to kind of just practice mindfulness. What is it that you can deal with right now with the information that you have? How can you plan forward with with the information that you have? And then how do you learn acceptance around the things you cannot control? And so those are, I use meditation and journaling as a way of just quieting and stilling my mind, because there are definitely moments where I will start panicking and then I need to basically take those steps to say, okay, what am I panicking about? What can I do and put in place? And then how can I just be mindful of how I'm feeling? So those are the simple things that you can do. A lot of people find exercising quite helpful. As we continue to stay working from home, it just means that you're less time commuting. So those times that you save, can you dedicate half an hour just going for a walk or a run? I think mental health often gets put down the too hard basket, and actually it is about just self-awareness, understanding your triggers, putting in place things to address those things that trigger you, and then just simple habits that you perform consistently that works for you. And when you don't know what works for you, experimenting is completely fine.
Yeah. Right. Well, look, thank you so much, Angela. Do you have a corporate social media account or your own personal media account that people can follow you on?
Yeah, so ClearHead is available to follow on social, on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. So feel free to give us a follow, and we kind of share updates and tips and stuff like that weekly. If you want more tips on how to support yourself through COVID or through your mental health, you can jump on our website, clearhead.org.nz, and there's a blog piece, and there's lots of blogs that we publish around how to help you through COVID-19 and your mental health. And don't forget, during this time is when, for the first time, everybody is available to be contacting each other, and so make the most of this period where you can have those social contacts, even if it's digitally.
Cool. Thank you so much, Angela. Look, I want to thank you for taking your time out, because I know you're really busy. You've got, you're trying to create, this service. So I want to thank everybody. I want to thank everybody that turned up and came and participated in the session. The video will be up on the YouTube channel this afternoon and on our website, and you'll find all of the previous ones there as well. I want to remind people that we've got a webinar next Wednesday at 1 o'clock, which is about the working from home series, and we're going to be very much talking about more about this, keeping your focus and looking after yourself and well-being. A lot less on the technology next week. And then just finally, everybody, next week's CxObytes, we're going to be talking with JB Risselow, who is the CEO of Chorus. And he's been here just a few months and suddenly found himself in the middle of quite a disruptive time. So again, thank you, everybody. And thanks, Angela. We'll see you again around, no doubt.